Azag the Slaughterer flies his wyvern high above the skies of the Badlands in search of an arcane item, the Skull of Mighty Healing. High above the desert he spots a shiny object glimmering, hidden just off the banking of thick marshlands. As he approaches, the light darkens, and eyes appear from beneath the swampy surface. A troll hag named Long Jenny bursts out of the water, with slime and sludge dripping endlessly from her yellowed teeth. Long Jenny has also spotted the skull and attempts to close the distance between herself and the item, as Azag has also done. Both inhumane monsters lock eyes with each other. Only one will leave the Badlands alive. The civil war has begun.
Hello my friends, my name is Dragonheart, the Prince of Wales, and welcome to my channel and welcome to today's battle report. We have the Nomadic Waaagh versus the Troll Horde, the Orc and Goblin Civil Waaagh. Okay, so it's a civil war. It is a Warhammer The Old World battle report, 2,000 points, and it is myself playing as the Nomadic Waaagh versus Matthew, who is playing as the Troll Horde. Matthew is a guy who I've been talking to for the past few weeks. This was my very first battle with him. We took some photos of the battle throughout, and I basically sort of said I might make a battle report maybe, and he was like, yeah, go for it, take loads of photos, go for it. So I was like, cool, okay. The battle was really fun to play, and I thought it'd be cool to do this. So yep, we'll get into the lists first of all, and then we'll go into the actual report itself. So let's have a look at the Nomadic Waaagh. Okay, so with the Nomadic Waaagh, we'll start with characters. So we have 762 points in characters. We start off with our general. He is a Black Orc War Boss at 340 points. He has the full plate armor. He has shield. He's riding a wyvern. He has troll hide trousers, and he has the giant blade. So he gets the +2 multiple wounds on the giant blade, which is really, really handy. And the troll hide trousers are really good as well because it gives the regen option on a 5-up, and it also gives a +1 to his armor value as well. Next up we have the Goblin Odd Knob at 210 points. So this is my spellcaster. He's a level 4 wizard who is riding a giant wolf, has Ruby Ring of Ruin, naturally of course. I also spent 5 points extra for the Earthing Rod just to help with the miscasting, and we are using Elementalism as our spells for this game. And then finally, to round off the characters, we have a Black Orc Big Boss at 212 points. He has a hand weapon, an additional hand weapon, full plate armor, a shield. We have the Black Orc Boar Chariot that he's riding on, and that's with hand weapons, and the crew has an additional hand weapon as well. And that rounds off the characters. Next, we move on to core. So we have 506 points in core. We have a Black Orc Boar Chariot at 142 points. Hand weapon, additional hand weapon, a 3-up armor, and a standard bearer. We have a unit of 7 Goblin Wolf Rider Mob. So that's 150 points on this one. So it's a hand weapon, short bows, light armor. They have feigned flight, which is quite a useful thing to have. So basically, if you flee as a charge reaction, you automatically rally at the end of the turn, basically. They have the Ambushers trait. They have a boss. They have a standard bearer and a musician, but they also have Da Spider Banner, which is a really good banner to have. It enables poison attacks, so it's quite useful. If you get a 6 when you're trying to wound, when you're trying to hit, that automatically wounds as a poison attack, so it's quite a useful thing to have. We do have a second unit of 7 Goblin Wolf Rider Mob at 108 points. So they have hand weapons, short bows, light armor, feint flight, and again, a boss, a standard bearer, and a musician. And then to round off then, we have 2 units of Goblin Wolf Chariots, hand weapons, cavalry spears, short bows, and a 5-up armor save. These are both 53 points each. Then we move on to special, and this is the most expensive unit that I have in my entire army. 15 Orc Boar Boy mobs at 390 points. They have cavalry spears, they have heavy armor, shields, they have big guns, they have a boss who has spiteful shield. So if anyone attacks him and they roll a natural 1 to hit or to wound, they must basically take wounds, or I think it's like something, strength 4 hits. You roll a dice to see how many you get. It's quite a useful item to have. They have a standard bearer and also the big red raggedy flag, which is a useful banner to have. And also they have a musician as well. And then to round off this army, in Ray we have 342 points. 142 of those are with a Black Orc Boar Chariot, who has hand weapon, additional hand weapon, a 3-up save, and standard bearer. And then we have a Mighty Fine Giant at 200 points, which has a Giant's Club and light armor. And now we move on to the Troll Horde at 2,000 points. Starting off with characters, we have 600 points in characters. We have the Troll Hag, who is the general, at 300 points. Hand weapon, Gnarled Stump. They have Troll Vomit, Swamp Breath, heavy armor. They are also a level 2 wizard. They have the Talisman of Protection, which gives them a 5-up save. And they are using Troll Magic. And then we have an Orc Weird Knob, 300 points. Hand weapon, level 4 wizard. This one is riding a wyvern and it's also using Troll Magic. Next up we have Core, 906 points in Core. So we have 6 River Troll Mob at 318 points. They have hand weapons, Troll Vomit, great weapons and light armor. Then we have 2 units that are identical of 6 Stone Troll Mob at 294 points apiece. Hand weapons, Troll Vomit, great weapons and light armor. Then into special, we have 294 points on another unit of 6 Stone Troll Mobs, exactly the same as the ones that are in Core. And in Ray, we have a Mighty Fine Giant with the Giant's Club and light armor. For the scenario, we went with a straight open field battle. However, we decided to use the square-based rules which they have on their website. These are used in many of the square-based tournaments that are run in Nottingham. So basically we went with layout B for open battle. That has 2 buildings, it has 2 hills and has 2 forests. And you can see on this map on the screen right now, it gives you like the dimensions of where they should be. The map that we actually used in the actually on the table was slightly different. It was slightly smaller than what this image is built for, so we had to adjust by a few inches for each thing, but I think it worked out quite fairly in the end. For spells, we have Stormcall, Plague of Rust, Summon Elemental Spirit, and Itchy Nuisance for the Nomadic Waaagh. Then for the Troll Horde, on the Troll Hag, we have Big Smarts and Foated Whirlpool. And then on the level 4 Shaman that's on the Wyvern, we have Big Smarts and Foated Whirlpool again, but we also have Ravenous Recourse and Torrent of Filth. So for deployment, the Trolls win the roll-off and they deploy on my right flank with 3 units of Stone Trolls, 1 unit of River Trolls and the Troll Hag. On my left flank, he deploys his Weird Knob on Wyvern and his Giant. I deploy with my Black Orc Wyvern, Black Orc Chariot, Wolf Rider Chariot and Goblin Wolf Riders on my left flank, giving me a numbers advantage of 4 units to 2 that side of the board, and then everything else on the right side of the board giving me a 7 to 5 unit advantage there as well. So Troll Horde turn 1 is fairly straightforward. He gets off his spells for rapid regeneration on his trolls. He creeps up the board slightly with all of his forces, taking care not to be in charge range of my units. He casts Rapid Whirlpool on my left flank in front of my 4 units there, and moves up the flank with his Giant. His Shaman on Wyvern was initially behind the Giant, but he moves this a bit closer to his main army, the building at the top of the map. So he's basically just a few inches sort of behind the Giant. And that's more or less the turn for him. And then we go into Nomadic Waaagh turn 1. So in my first turn, I march my general high up the flank, passing his Giant, not to give the Giant a charge on him. I then support this with my Wolf Chariot, who maneuvers around the whirlpool and into firing range of the Giant and takes a few bow shots at it, however it does miss. This was also supported with my Goblin Wolf Riders, who also take some plucky shots at the Giant. They have the Spider Banner, so gain the poison attack special rule, however they do also miss as well. My Black Orc Chariot on the left flank maneuvers around the right side of the template away from the Giant. Meanwhile, within the centre of the board, I had my Shaman on Wolf, who I moved up about 6 inches. As his Giant had moved, he was now within range of Ruby Ring of Ruin. I took my shot against the Giant and was able to take 2 wounds off him, taking him down to 4 wounds in total. I tried a Fated Dispel on his Whirlpool, however I rolled poorly and it remains in play. The only other spell I could cast this turn was Summon Elemental Spirit, which I cast on a 9+. My intention was to place the template right in front of his River Trolls, as I now had line of sight on them. My hope was that placing this so close to possibly 5 of his units would have the random movement each turn cause damage to many of them. However, he was able to successfully dispel this at the start of his next turn, and the random movement dice I rolled at the start of that turn was a direct hit, so it just stayed where it was until it was dispelled, which is unfortunate for me because I was hoping that it would hopefully do some damage to a big cluster of his units that he had in that place there. On my right flank, I moved everything forward and had taken the top of the hill with my Goblin Wolf Riders, with my second Black Orc Chariot unit slightly behind them. My Elemental Spirit template did not move randomly as I had rolled a direct hit, and he subsequently was able to successfully dispel my template at the start of this turn. He then rolled the random movement of his template, and unfortunately for me, this clipped through my Black Orc Chariot on my left flank, taking 2 wounds off of them. They now have 2 wounds remaining. He then charges his giant into my Goblin Wolf Rider Chariot, so we have our first combat of the day. The Wolf Chariot was able to take a further 2 wounds from the giant in combat, which I was very pleased with, so the giant is now down to 2 wounds remaining. However, the giant rolls a mighty swing and smashes through the wolves, taking all their wounds off them. The giant, however, failed to reform and stumbles forward 7 inches into the forest terrain on the left flank, facing the bottom left hand corner of the map, as my Goblin Wolf Riders are now within charge range of the giant's flank. The rest of his army creeps up the board into a fairly solid block of trolls and Troll Hag. His wyvern has moved out of charge range of my wyvern and is now sitting fairly close to his river troll. In my turn 2, I perform an impetuous check on my Black Orc Chariot on my left flank, which it passes. It had range to reach his wyvern, but it would have had to have rolled perfectly to have reached it, which was unlikely. The chariot and the wyvern move even closer to the centre of the board now, performing an envelop on the left flank that Hannibal Barker would have been proud of. I don't need to perform an impetuous check on my big boss, as he has the Quell Impetuous special rule, and the chariot to his right is within range of him, so does not need to make this check as well. However, my Goblin Wolf Riders are too far away and must be checked. I roll and fail my impetuous check. They now must charge the stone trolls on the far right side of the table and come off the hill. I roll the charge and the goblins make it, lining up on the right side of his troll's base. I decide that it is the moment to strike with everything, as the strength of the Nomadic Waaagh is impact hits and getting into things, so I declare charge from my Orc Boar Boys into his Troll Hag, my big boss on chariot and giant into a unit of stone trolls, and my remaining wolf chariot into the far right side of the stone trolls to support my Goblin Wolf Riders that have already declared and made that charge. I roll and the boar boys are in on the Troll Hag. I roll for the big boss and he rolls badly, fails his charge and stumbles forward a few inches. I roll for my giant and the same happens. I then roll for the wolf chariot and they also fail their charge, 3 in a row. The wolf chariot lands at the bottom of the hill just at the crest. I jokingly say at this point that my dice are cursed and that Matthew has magic dice and he is rolling highs and I am rolling low. I also declare a cheeky charge into his giant's flank with my 7 Goblin Wolf Riders. I said that I have left this side of the board now and I'm happy just to leave them to the fate with the giant. I am awfully evil, as you can tell. I move my Shaman on Wolf slightly to the right to try and get off Plague of Rust on the Troll Hag. I cast it on a 9+, however he attempts to dispel with his Shaman on Wyvern and beats my score by 1. It doesn't go off. I then try and cast another Elemental Spirit, however this does not go off. I then cast Wind Blast on the Stone Troll unit on the right flank that is not engaged in combat, and this goes off. As he is unable to dispel it, I took 3 wounds off them and downed 1 solitary troll and forced them back 2 inches. We now move on to combat, the Boar Boys versus the Troll Hag. We get our impact hits and we get our attacks with cavalry spears. In total, we're able to make 2 wounds on the Troll Hag. She has her ward saves, armor saves and regen saves, plus she is able to re-roll her regen saves. Then she attacks back, killing 3 boars, and I'm unable to make any saves on them, and that takes out the majority of my back line. She then uses her Troll Vomit attack and Stomp attack and takes out a further 2 Boar Boys. I have done 2 wounds in total, she has done 5 wounds in total. I have big red raggedy flag for the +1 combat res, however it is not enough and I fail my break test, fleeing 10 inches away from the Troll Hag. Matthew rolls and makes 11 inches, but his wife is happy, and just about catches the Boar Boys, taking them out directly, and off the board they go back into my box. That is 390 points of mine taken out in 1 solitary swoop. Now things go bad to worse for me, as when the Boar Boys fled, They fled through my Goblin Wolf Shaman that I had moved up earlier, because of course I'm trying to get them in range to do spells. This unfortunately causes a panic test, and the Goblin Wolf Shaman fails this panic test and is also fleeing about 6 inches towards the building on my side of the table. I not only have lost my boar boys, but now, for the time being, I can't use magic. We then have combat with the Wolf Riders against the Stone Trolls, which, as you can imagine, does not go well, and he easily defeats them without taking a wound. They all just die immediately on the right flank. At this point, I thought my game was done. On turn 2. But sometimes you need a spark to light the fuse for rebellion, or whatever the hell Poe Dameron says in Star Wars. We have combat on the left flank. 7 plucky Goblin Wolf Riders charging into the flank of the giant. David versus Goliath. The giant again lands a mighty swing on the giant attack table and takes out 3 poor goblins and their wolves. I get to attack back with my 4 remaining goblins, and I roll 2 6s. As this unit has the spider banner, they have the poisoned attack special rule, so 6s are auto wounds. The giant tries his saves and rolls poorly. The giant is dead. David slays Goliath. The goblins celebrate and party. They rejoice, for they have shown those pesky bully Black Orcs how to proper kill a giant. However, the giant has timber. Matthew rolls a 6. I also roll a 6. Matthew then rolls a 6. And I roll a 1. The dice giveth, and the dice taketh away. In true goblin fashion, they achieve immortality. Songs will be sung about them in the annals of the old world. Their ancestors will name their children Hobgrut, Bobgrut, Throbgrut, and Charlie. And the giant lands on top of them as they ascend to a manky swamp in the lands of Always Mork. Random movement of the whirlpool again moves and hits my Black Orc chariot for a second time, this time taking a further 1 wound off of him. He now has 1 wound remaining. He moves his shaman on Wyvern again, this time towards the centre of the board, again trying his best to avoid combat with my Wyvern. He then does a stupidity test on his Troll Hag, and fortunately for me, she fails and moves further forward towards me on the board, away from my centre where the majority of my remaining forces are located. At this point, things start to get a bit messy. We also took a break around this point, so my memory of the next few events might be slightly out of order, but I'll do my best to explain. As within this image on the screen, we have Model Gore, and I'm not talking about OnlyFans. That's a good joke, come on. He charges his stone trolls into my wolf chariot and kills it instantly, and is then able to restrain and point himself in the direction of my forces. He charges stone trolls into my Black Orc Big Boss, taking a wound off of him. Big Boss attacks back and is able to take out a troll model. When we did combat res, it was a draw. In my turn, I follow up with my giant, as he was close to the action anyway, and could not fail his charge. So we now have a 2v1 in my favour for the next combat that we do. Above this on the image, we have the unit of stone trolls that wiped out the Goblin Wolf Riders on the right flank, now in combat with my Black Orc chariot. This chariot did not get its impact hits or furious charge, as it was literally 2 inches away from the model before charging it. The Black Orc chariot loses combat and falls back 2 inches, and the trolls follow. Then the 2v1 involving the giant and the Orc Big Boss goes well for me. They kill many trolls and win combat and force them to flee. They end up fleeing through their own unit that is currently engaged in combat, causing further damage to the other unit of stone trolls. They end up fleeing and landing behind the units as shown in the image, and during the troll turn they fail their break test and remain fleeing. Meanwhile, I declare a charge on his 3rd unit of stone trolls that are nestled behind his river trolls with my Wyvern and Black Orc chariot. Both make their charges and annihilate the stone trolls, winning combat by 11. The Wyvern pursues the fleeing stone trolls, catches them and destroys the unit. The Black Orc chariot restrains and reforms so that it can charge the river trolls, which it does in my next turn, winning combat by 1 against them, and in turn catching and destroying that unit. That's a unit of stone trolls and river trolls destroyed and taken off the board. His Wyvern, however, was able to get into combat and easily defeat my Black Orc chariot, as they only had 1 wound remaining. After destroying the one unit of stone trolls with the wyvern was now in range to catch the other unit of stone trolls which fled through the unit that I mentioned previously. The wyvern also catches this unit in my turn and takes out a second unit of stone trolls from the game. In the combat centre of the map, my second Black Orc chariot and giant succumb to multiple rounds of combat and lose their remaining wounds. And again, I don't get the dice roll and the giant just falls basically onto thin air and not onto my enemy. However, I had smartly removed my big boss unit and restrained and reformed him to where he was now in charge range of the rear end of his troll hag. Hello Jenny. I make the charge, and as the charge range was now over 3 inches as the troll had stupidity and had gone forward, I was now able to get my impact hits and Tusker charge into her. The troll hag has 4 wounds remaining. I get my impact hits and make 3 hits. The troll hag attempts her saves and regen and is only able to make 1 save. She is now down to 2 wounds remaining. The crew get their attacks and again make multiple hits and make 3 more wounds. She attempts her ward save, regen saves and re-roll of regen saves, and she makes all her saves bar 1. She is now 1 wound remaining. She gets to attack me back and get some wounds on me. I am able to make some saves and I roll 2 6s at a clutch time which keeps me alive, but she does get me down to 1 wound remaining. My boars also get to attack her with their tusks. I must do something with this, as if I don't, she gets to use her stomp attacks and her troll vomit and will likely kill me before I kill her. The boars attack and they roll a 5 to hit and then roll another 6 to wound. The troll hag rolls her armor save and fails, rolls her regen and fails, and re-rolls her regen again and rolls a 1. The troll hag is dead. The game is starting to turn back towards me. That's a 300 point model and general taken out of the army. After this, he moved his shaman on wyvern towards my Black Orc chariot, and they then got into combat with each other, and hilariously both missed their hits on each other and remained in combat for my turn 5. By this point in the battle, my general has been mopping up the stone trolls, going on a big run of terror at the top of the map, and has now repositioned itself to charge straight down the board towards his wyvern, getting a rear charge into the back of it. Finally, all game chasing this wyvern, I finally get into it. So we now have a rear charge of my wyvern into his wyvern, while his wyvern was locked in combat with my Black Orc big boss. He does have a depleted unit of stone trolls left some distance behind these, with 1 troll on 1 wound remaining and 3 at full wounds. You'll notice that I have not mentioned magic in quite some time and are probably wondering what happened with my shaman on Giant Wolf. Well, for multiple turns it failed its leadership test and nearly ended up off the board. We checked its fleeing arc and the amount it was fleeing and where it was going to end up roughly was about 1.5 inches off the edge of the board. At the start of my turn 5, I rolled a double 2 and was able to rally my wolf shaman. I was then able to move him back into the board. It is lovely to see old friends again. I haven't seen this guy since the second turn. I attempted to cast Plague of Rust to lower the armor value of the wyvern and failed. However, I was able to get off Elemental Spirit again and place the template just below on the off chance that it moves and hits in its turn 6. I couldn't use Wind Blast as they were all engaged in combat, and I didn't have range or line of sight on the stone trolls behind. And so we have combat. I went first with my wyvern and got many hits and multiple wounds too with my giant's blade, and my big boss got 1 wound on the wyvern as well. His wyvern doesn't hit either of them and I win combat, with his shaman on wyvern having 2 wounds remaining. He flees 5 inches to the right hand side, and it is at this point that Matthew concedes the game. He said that my wyvern would easily catch and destroy his, and then my wyvern and goblin shaman on Giant Wolf are fully intact with no wounds, and I also somehow still had my Black Orc big boss on chariot. All of my characters are intact. So in total, the Nomadic Waaagh scored 1,706 points, and the Troll Horde scored 1,397 points, so it is a win by 309 points for the Nomadic Waaagh. So there we have the battle report. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've watched until this far, I would really appreciate it if you dropped a like on the video, just because it took me a lot of time and effort to take the photos, obviously play the battle, do a lot of the editing and the artwork and the thumbnail and all that kind of good stuff. So if you could, I would really appreciate it, because it might help the channel be seen by a couple of people and the video go into the algorithm and do half decent maybe. So if you could do that, that would be amazing. But this is going to be my recap and review of the battle. So first of all, a big thank you to Matthew. It was great to play somebody who I'd never played before. Up until this point, with Warhammer The Old World, I've only played against my friend Paul. Paul is one of the reasons why I got into Warhammer, and he has been fantastic and great at showing me the rules and things, and whenever I play Paul, it's been great. But it's been nice for me to get out of my comfort zone and play against somebody completely different. It can be quite nerve-wracking and a little bit stressful, because I'm not somebody who... I'm probably at an age where I find it hard to make friends. I'm kind of that, getting a bit older now, and it's like social interactions and stuff is quite hard sometimes for me. Maybe it's a side effect of COVID and things like that, but for me it was a great experience. I really enjoyed playing against Matthew. He's a really nice person, good dude and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be playing another battle soon. We've talked about doing one in January. I think January the 18th we're going to be playing again. So that's going to be good fun. I'm looking forward to doing that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it in the description below, a link to Matthew's Instagram page, because he does commission painting. You'll notice from some of the photos in this battle report that his artwork looks really nice, especially his Troll Hag. I was talking to him about the netting on his Troll Hag and how that looked and how long that would have taken him, and it would have taken hours, I would imagine. So by all means, go and check out his Instagram page in the description below. But yeah, the actual battle itself, let me talk about that. So it was a roller coaster of emotions, really. So, you know, first turn, you just creep forward, he creeps forward, sort of thing. He puts the template down on the left flank. It does take some wounds off my Black Orc Chariot, which is quite frustrating. And he's only got his giant bit. He's committed with his giant. I thought he was going to commit with the Wyvern as well, but I think he sort of tailed back a little bit with the Wyvern and went back to the centre of the board. So then I had like my giant, my Black Orc Chariot, my Wolf Chariot, Wolf Riders, and my Wyvern with his giant. And I was looking at it and thinking, there's no point having 4 units tied up to 1 unit here. Even if the giant wins combat against my chap, I'm just going to go to the other side of the board and just migrate over there, and basically take the left flank quite unopposed, apart from obviously the giant. So it was quite evident to me early on that the main combat was going to be in the centre and the right hand side of the board and not the left. So what I did, I threw my chaff into the giant, and somehow the giant was toppled. Obviously the wolf shaman that I have, my level 4 wizard, helped out a little bit before he got taken out. He was able to take 2 wounds off the giant, and that proved pivotal, because the wolf chariot was able to take a further 2 wounds from the giant. Giant was down to 2 wounds, and then somehow, miraculously, the best moment of the entire battle, 7 plucky goblin wolf riders charge into the flank of this giant. There's just 1 combat, and are just taken out their brethren, their wolf chariot goblins, and because they have the poisoned attacks, 6s are auto wounds, and they get 2 of them. They get 2 6s, roll really well, and he's unable to make the saves. The giant topples, and it's like, yes, finally, we've done something amazing. And then literally we roll and lose the roll off, and the giant just flattens them, and they just die. Like, that was the best moment for me in the battle. So much fun. But that was the left hand side of the board. That's basically what happened. And then when you get to the centre and the right, it does become a little bit of a mess. Admittedly, halfway through, we did have a quick break for a few minutes, and we came back, and we sort of lost track a little bit of, like, oh, is it your turn? Is it my turn? What happened in combat? We had to sort of backtrack a little bit just to try and re-jog our memory and try and work out where we actually were in the battle. And I think eventually we did, and we sort of worked it out. But yeah, that's why the battle report is like a turn 1, a turn 2, a turn 3, and after turn 3 it just kind of goes a little bit kind of confusing. His Wyvern was being chased by my Wyvern throughout the entire battle, more or less. That's why his Wyvern didn't really get into much combat until the very end of the battle. Obviously, they're both very good units, very strong. My Wyvern, statistically speaking, is very strong compared to that Wyvern, because it's a Black Orc boss on a Wyvern, which has better attack characteristics and defense characteristics and all that kind of stuff, and saves. Plus, it has the Giant's Blade, so that's a very potent weapon to have on him as well. So he was trying to avoid combat where he could. Obviously, the elephant in the room here is the numbers advantage. I had 11 drops, he had 7 drops, so I outnumbered him before the battle even began. That's another reason why when I saw his 1 giant there, I was like, right, I'm going to move to the other side of the board. and get up that side. And what I did then, the wyvern was, my wyvern, my Black Orc wyvern, was insane in this battle. It just literally went on this massive run. And I'm going to put an image on the screen right now, and this is from his Discord, from the Discord that we're involved in. He put that up, a little review of the battle in his own words. Basically, he went Rambo, didn't he? Just went on Rambo and just went through everything. So he took out he actually took out the river trolls. In the battle report, I said it was the Black Orc chariot that took them out, but I was wrong. When I went back and looked at the photos, it was actually the wyvern. So the wyvern took out 2 units of the 3 stone trolls. It took out the river troll unit, and basically took out the wyvern right at the end of the battle. In the middle of the battle, it was just an absolute mess. It was the giant, it was the big boss, it was another unit of chariots, it was the stone troll. It was just a big blob, and they kept sort of routing through each other and stuff. Like the trolls went through, so they took like damage, and there's all this kind of stuff going on. It was quite hard to keep track of all of that. But the end result of all of that mess was that he had a stone troll unit remaining at the end, which started off with 6 trolls. It had 3 trolls remaining, and then a 4th troll that had 1 wound remaining. So it was 4 trolls out of 6 still there, so it was quite beaten up. I'd lost everything in the middle, apart from my big boss, which I'd taken out of combat the turn prior to focus on the troll hag, because the real prize was the troll hag, not that battle with the stone trolls. And because the troll hag obviously defeated the Black Orc boys, which I'll get to in a moment, it failed its stupidity test. And when a troll fails stupidity test, you roll the dice and it just basically goes forward. And it went forward towards me, basically, where I was standing on my side of the table, but it couldn't do anything stupid. So it's just there for the taking for this point, and it's 300 points. It's its most valuable unit. I've got a Black Orc big boss who had a few wounds left. It was still okay. I got my charge in because the troll hag had moved. It was now at the point where I was in combat with the Black Orc big boss. They were quite close to each other, the models. Once that troll hag had moved and I had reformed my Black Orc big boss on chariot, it was like 5 or 6 inches. So because it was over 3 inches, I got my impact hits, I got my Tusker charge, I got all the good stuff that you want, which at this point I was nullified. I couldn't quite get all of these things going because combat was so close. With my chariot stuff, I wasn't getting the things I want to get out of the army. So eventually I got the impact hits, and because it was into a flank charge into the rear of the troll hag, and they just whittled each other down with their attacks to the point where they both have 1 wound remaining. And then I'm thinking, if I don't kill the troll hag now with my Tusker charge and all that kind of stuff, he'll kill me, because the troll hag has troll vomit and it has stomp attacks, which both are sort of towards the end of combat. So I had to kill it first, which fortunately I did. I rolled well. They have rapid regeneration, which is a spell which is the first time I've come across this spell in the game. It is so bloody good. So basically, fighting the troll hag, it gets his normal like ward saves and stuff. Then it rolls for its regeneration on a 5-up, and then if you roll and fail your regen roll up, you get to re-roll it. So that was happening quite a lot, and that can be used on the troll units as well, not just the troll hag. So I was fighting combat and I was having to try my best to get loads and loads of wounds. I was thinking, yes, I got 4 wounds here, and then it's like, oh, only 1 wound's gone through, and it's like, ugh. Anything in Old World which lets you re-roll stuff is very strong, and I had to contend with that in the battle, which was obviously a challenge, but a really nice fun challenge to have. But yeah, eventually it gets down to 1 wound each, and we are able to topple the troll hag. She goes, and I just felt so much relief when she was gone. I was like, yes, she's gone. That's a magic user gone as well, because that was a level 2 wizard, and we had the level 4 wyvern as well. So we had 6 lots of spells going off. And obviously, on the topic of spells, I couldn't do anything from turn 2. My Goblin Wolf Shaman basically fleed because my ball boys fleed right through them. He then fleed like 6 or 7 inches towards the building. Then we tried to rally the following turn, and he couldn't rally. He rolled like a 10 or 11 or something, and he needed like an 8, I think, or a 7 it might have been, I can't remember. And he just kept fleeing, and we were like working at the flee directions and all that kind of stuff, because there was like I think he had a charge. I think his wyvern, when he brought it to the center of the board, I think he went to charge and failed the charge, but because it causes terror and I'm a fleeing unit, I had to flee from the direction of that or something like that. So my arc sort of changed, and then we had to sort of work it out, and it ended up being like an inch and a half, or it wasn't much, away from the edge of the board. So going into my turn 5, I then roll, and I roll a double 2, which is a 4, which rallies, which is fantastic. It got under its leadership, which is great. But if I'd failed that, it would have gone off the board, and that would have been points secured for them, and the scores would have been a lot closer. And then on the topic of scoring and stuff, obviously with the combat with the Troll Hag and the Boar Boys, that was so devastating for me. That was such a devastation at that point in the game. It's turn 2. I've got my Boar Boys, I've got my Big Boss, I've got my Orc Chariot, and I've got Black Orc Chariot, and I got my Wolf Chariot, and I've also got my Goblin Boys, just riders, already in combat because they failed their impetuosity and had to charge. So at this point I'm thinking, throw it all in, just fly up into the enemy, get all your impact hits in there, get some combat in there. Because by this point the giant didn't bother me too much. Obviously I won the combat, which is insane, even though it was at the cost of some goblins, which didn't matter because they earned their points that day, very, very much so. And the Boar Boys get in, I'm thinking, fantastic, they've got their impact hits and stuff, perfect. But everything else fails. I fail 3 charges on the spin. The Big Boss fails his charge. The Wolf Chariot fails their charge. The Giant fails his charge. 3 units that I wanted in combat all fail in their charge, and that's how they ended up, the 3 of them, in our big sort of mess in the middle of the battle, because they failed their charges, and then they were nullified because he was able to move up the board and just get into them without me getting my charges off, sort of thing. And I was so frustrated. So the Boar Boys get into combat. They don't do that well. They roll quite poorly. Even with the red raggedy flag, which gives me a +1 combat res, they weren't able to do much. They took 2 wounds off the Troll Hag, which obviously was pivotal in the end, killing the Troll Hag anyway, later on of course, but they lost combat by a couple or so, and they flee back 10 inches, and I'm thinking, 10 inches, yeah, that's fine, we should be okay. I'll try and rally them next turn, I'll reform them, they're still in the battle, that's still points protected, they're 390 points, they're my most expensive unit. And then he's like, I'm going to pursue, I'm going to whatever. I was like, okay, well, it's 10 inches, you still got to roll quite well and whatever. And he gets 11. He gets 11 inches. He beats it by 1. And that was the theme for the sort of first few turns. Whenever there was like magic and stuff, and I was like, I'm going to try and go for this spell. It's cast on like a 12 or something like that. You got to better this score. And then he would better it by 1 each and every time, for the most part early on, and that was so frustrating. Just dice rolls, just a dice game, just the way it goes sometimes. And then it was like, oh yeah, you got a chance to charge her, you need to make whatever, and I roll, and it's like double 1, and it's like, just sums up my day. So for me, it was so much fun to play against somebody different. It was great to play against the Troll Horde. They're such a fun faction, and it makes me, with my Orcs and Goblins, want to maybe buy some Trolls and try that build out as well, because I've been playing Nomadic Waaagh for a couple of battles now, which have been fun, and I'm going to be playing the Grand Army at some stage as well. But also to see this army in action, the Troll Horde, was really, really nice and a pleasure to play against as well. And yeah, I just can't wait to have my next battle. I'm looking forward to it. I've got some ideas for builds and things I want to try out and that kind of stuff as well. And I'm just really, really enjoying Warhammer The Old World at the moment, and it's great to play against some people and make some new friends doing it as well. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. As much as I love playing and winning, because the aim of the game is to win battles, I'm learning every time I play. I'm learning new things, and for me it's just about becoming a better player and just enjoying the game. And I don't need to win all the time. I don't need to win battles. I want to, but I can just have just as much fun watching my army get absolutely obliterated and being like, go on, try and beat it, go on, beat my giant, that kind of thing. And I think that's what it's about. It's the spirit of the game, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the spirit of the game and stuff. If you've enjoyed this video, like I said earlier on, if you drop a like, that'd be amazing. I do have some more plans for some Warhammer The Old World things in the new year. So my friend Paul has recently agreed to do a sort of podcast discussion type of thing with me. We're going to be talking about our experiences with Warhammer The Old World, basically a 1-year review. So check that out in January, in a few weeks' time. We're talking about like our thoughts and feelings of the game, the meta, some of our favourite moments of playing, things that we would improve, things that we would change, things we don't like. Just basically an opinion piece. It'll probably be like an hour long, something like that. And it'll just be me and him talking. So if you want to watch or listen to that, put it on in the background while you're washing dishes or something like that, then by all means do that. And I think I'm going to end the video here because it's probably gone a bit longer than I wanted to. I hope you've all enjoyed. I've been Dragonheart, the Prince of Wales. Until next time, goodbye.